That's what I'm talking about. All right. We got a returning guest over here, Mr. Kris Hoffman. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
And, you know,
Living the
living
dream.
that dream.
That's right.
Memorial Day weekend, you know.
I know. It's great.
Huge shout
Yeah,
out
yeah.
to all the veterans, man, past and present. Anybody
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
taking a bullet for this country, put on a uniform for this country, man. God bless you all, man. Appreciate every single one of you, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I just found
Most
out
definitely.
my kid is he's actually getting deployed this weekend too.
To
So he's
where?
gonna be out. Huh?
Where's he
Can't
going?
say. Can't say.
Top
he has
secret.
a yeah, he got secret level clearance, so I'll tell you offline. But
Hope he's
today,
safe, though,
I mean, kind of before we get into that, we'll hit some show notes, some housekeeping stuff like that, right? Make sure you guys join that Happy Dragons. Hit up their Patreon. Use Gecko Exchange for 20% off. Uh, and then also we are gonna have an app here soon, June, July-ish. And go ahead, get on that. Start doing everything you need to do. It's a good way to pay attention to your animals, observe everything. You notate everything on there. So make sure you go ahead and once it's released, go ahead and hop on, do that stuff. All right. Um,
I'm excited
also
myself, man.
make sure you guys if you want uh what is it? Buy me a coffee. Make sure you guys, if you're not a member, go ahead and do that. We'll start posting more stuff on there sooner than later. Um, and then other than that, a little bit of housekeeping. And what's been going on with you, man? What's going on in the Gecko room, dude?
Got the new cow corner, man. We got two guests a week. We got some cool episodes in the making. Just interviewed Flawless Crested Geckos. I interviewed Brian Butler. I got Cresty Works in the mix. I got man. I've got the calendar filled for the next 3 months for 2 days a week, guys. So just stay tuned,
Nice.
man, and bring you some fun interviews, man. Some fun conversations, man. Bobby from Gecko Cove, his is coming up. I got a lot of fun ones, man. A lot of good conversations.
Yeah, Ant stays working. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's all
Me,
fun till you got to
ain't
edit.
about to happen. You
Well, not
know.
even edit. I don't even edit, man. Screw that. I don't edit. If you don't want, if
I
you don't want,
edit
if
after
you don't
you
want
send
it on it.
it to me. That's when I make the edits.
Oh yeah, see, I don't do it, man. I do make the
Yeah.
little reels, and that's it, man. Don't say nothing you don't want the interwebs to hear.
Right. Oh man. Kris, what's going on in your
Yeah.
collection, man?
Just everything's pumping up a little bit with breeding seasons kind of going. Um,
Yeah.
just kind of maintaining what I got.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy new. I got a young pair of Uradora. Um, what was it? April, beginning of April. So at the All American Reptile Expo that came here to Charlotte.
Yeah. What
So
Where's that
species?
show?
the one that starts with an M, I can't remember the name.
The monoliths?
Monolith, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
So
Nice.
I did a little trade with one of my buddies.
Okay.
That's here in North Carolina. So I
Nice.
treated
How
him
is that
actually.
show? Because
Um,
they're coming out here in October.
oh really? Yeah. I mean, the promoters are amazing. They're super hands on. Definitely 100% step up from like doing Repticons and stuff.
I
So
hear
Yeah.
nothing but good things
uh,
about that show, man. Everybody I talk to is like they can't wait
yeah,
for the next one.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're like I said, they're great. They're hands on. They're answering questions. They're walking around the whole weekend. They're coming by and saying, "Hey, thanks for coming, checking out the stuff on your table." It's a great little crew that they have, and I mean, this was only the second show that they've done here in Charlotte. Um,
Nice.
so it was a great turnout. Tons of great vendors, like high quality vendors. It's and pretty much strictly exotic animals. I mean, there were some people with birds and a few other things, but you don't see a lot of the importing flipper people
Okay.
tables. So a lot more like specific breeders, guys with like just ball pythons or just day geckos or just cresteds. So guys that are, and gals, I should say, that are a little more focused, like in specific areas, so you're getting higher quality animals. They're not you don't have like one of everything. You know what I mean? So it's
Nice.
a good show. It's a fun show. It's a long weekend. They do a little bit. Their hours run a little bit longer than Repticons by a couple hours. They do a
Oh
little
wow.
Friday. They do a little Friday VIP like 4 to 7. Um, so you get a little bit of those people that can't make it over the weekend or just want to come in and get kind of first dibs. So most of the vendors are still setting up at that point, but
Yeah.
it gives the vendors an opportunity to kind of walk around during that point too. So yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah,
fun.
definitely.
It's a
Is it a
blast.
2 day show? Is it Saturday and Sunday? Is it a double day, 2 day event?
Yeah, so it's Saturday, Sunday, and then as well Friday. Like I said, that Friday little 4 to 7 VIP. You probably only have about 2/3 or so of the vendors set up on Friday for the VIP, and a lot of them are actually still in the process. You got a lot of vendors coming from out of state, stuff like that. So, um, but it still gives the public an opportunity to kind of come in and still kind of see some things before it gets crazy busy. And then and that variety with having plant vendors and stuff, it just goes hand in hand. Um, and so it's a great show. I really enjoy doing the shows.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. You can
Nice.
walk around. I mean, not everybody builds fully planted bio, enclosures, but it's
Yeah,
cool, to be able to walk around and come home with literally everything and build an enclosure that day. It sucks when like I'm in a situation now. I'm trying to build 12 enclosures. I got 12 new enclosures, and I'm like piecing things together, ordering this, waiting for this to come, this delivery date. Everything's like a mess.
yeah. I mean, the Repticons still have a few vendors that have plants and stuff, but not
Mm.
specifically plants only. It's like a reptile vendor that has some plants on their tables.
It's a nice
Um,
fusion. It's a great.
it
It's
is.
a fusion. Meant to be. They just go hand in hand. This industry should have partnered up a long time ago. Not that they haven't, but
Yeah,
they should have built tighter bonds a long time ago.
yeah, and you get some cool exotic plants. Stuff you're not going to just like see at Lowe's, Home Depot. Some kind of crazy stuff. They have some cool cactus and Venus flytraps and just weird oddball, oddball plants. So,
Awesome.
which brings a lot of other people, brings other people that are into plants. And then they're like, holy crap, the reptile world's humongous. I didn't realize that the reptile world was so big with all these vendors and breeders that are out there. And it gives a little bit of kind of everything for a family to come. You get people that are into plants. The kids might be into reptiles, so you get that good mix and
It's more
kind of
exposure.
satisfies everybody.
Much more exposure, more eyes,
Oh
more
yeah,
bodies through the door, more. It's I could literally spend a podcast talking about the benefits of putting the two together for the hobby
Yeah.
as a whole.
hmm
Look at Palm
So,
Street. Palm Street is
yeah.
my bad, Jay.
I
It's
was
like
just about
literally
to ask that too.
hmm
geckos and freaking plants, man. And they like
Mhm.
you'd be hard pressed to have a conversation with anyone where Palm Street doesn't come up. It's
yeah, and they blew up quick. I mean, a lot of people joined on that, especially in the reptile world.
Yeah.
I've talked to a few of my breeder friends that have had decent success by doing it. You spend a couple hours at a time, obviously, doing a nice little session, but I've had quite a few friend vendors and breeders that have said that they've had, they moved 10 animals that they've been bringing to shows for 6 months, and they moved them, a bunch of animals all in one little 2 or 3 hour session. So that's, again, it's another way to get out to the public.
Oh yeah.
sure.
I was gonna say, are you on there yet?
I haven't been on there. I'm definitely wanting to.
Yeah.
I've been a little, I won't say tight with my availability, but I don't want to do a Palm Street and sell like 12, 15 geckos, and then I have a show coming up in a month, and I got hardly anything to bring to the show. So I definitely at one point I am going to do it probably within a couple months once I
Yeah.
have some more hatchlings and stuff like that are popping out right now. And I'd like to
Yeah.
have a little bit of a variety. Um,
Yeah, that's
so
same problem right here too. I know me and Ant are gonna end up doing one probably like October, November. Um,
mm,
Hell yeah,
just
saving
like
everything.
Yeah, I just gotta get my inventory up right now. That's all it is,
Yeah.
and wait for geckos to at least hit those 3 month marks before I even think about shipping them out. Uh,
Yeah. Now, do you guys vend shows?
I don't know.
Okay.
I've only vended one show.
Okay.
Yeah, but I still need a whole lot of other stuff before I even think about vending the show.
Yeah, because
For
I've been
me, it's
vending
always
probably. Oh, sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I was gonna say my like for me, it's always been like that paralysis by over analysis, and like I need to get this, I need to get that, and instead of just jumping in and just knock out this first one. So
Mm.
it's a whole lot of that for me. Like I said, I still need banners, I need decor, all this other shit before I even think about like actually setting up an actual booth. Uh, but that's why I want to go check out that Plants and Animal Expo, um, just because I think I mean it's gonna be much better than my regular local shows.
Hmm.
Um, and then plus like no my regular local shows, like if you do it once and you don't do it the next time, you're automatically off.
Yeah, you
So
lose tables.
yeah, so I'm just like not gonna do that,
Yeah.
because I don't do this to produce a shit ton. So if I have
Yeah.
some, I have some. If I don't, I don't. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I got it. I've been doing about 4 to 6 shows a year
Yeah.
since like 2020.
Hmm.
So, keeping inventory levels is always not a challenge, but sometimes you're running tight. If you have a really good show, you've got another show in 2 to 3 months, and so you're like, you may be a little more limited that following show. Um,
Yeah.
I do what the way I started was is getting in with a couple friends of mine and just sharing tables. So then
Yeah.
you're not required to fill up like 2, 3 tables by yourself. You can get a couple tables with a couple other, friends and kind of spread out, accordingly.
Yeah.
Um, that's what I did for the first few shows, and then now we get a group of 8 tables with 4 of us. There's 4 vendors,
Shit.
4 of my friends,
Damn.
and we cover 8 tables together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you ever not
That's
bring animals because you know you have a specific show coming up that does better with particular animals, if that makes sense? Do you ever say like this show I'm going to bring this group of animals because this typically does well, and I'm going to hold these back for this show because these group of animals typically do well over there? Do you ever do anything like that, or you just bring everything until it's gone type of?
Yeah, a little bit. Like especially with the Repticons, you got a little more of like your kind of starter type of a reptile
so.
keeper.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you're going to bring a lot more gargoyles, cresteds, mourning geckos, a little more of the basic care, the stuff that your kind of beginner knows about, as opposed to bringing like Pterodactylus or something like that. Um, I did bring Pterodactylus a few times to Repticons, and I mean, it took me like 5, 6 shows before somebody even knew what the hell they were. Um, and then so I'll save those more for like when I did the All American. I brought a little more of a variety, a little more of the high end
Do you
options
breed
of
morning
stuff.
geckos? Or do you breed morning geckos?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How big is your colony, and how do you catch them? I asked this for a reason, but I'll tell you in a second. How do you like take a few out, and how big is your colony?
So I have 2 separate enclosures set up. One's a big tub, probably a little bit bigger than I'd say probably like a 15 gallon ish,
Hmm.
um, 15 to 18 gallon about. And then I have a 10 gallon that's heavily planted. Both of them are heavily planted pothos, just lots of sticks. And so what I do is I use either, I don't use a whole lot of cork bark because they have a tendency to lay and cluster the eggs under the cork bark. So what I do is I actually use like 1 inch PVC, and I'll drill holes about the size of maybe like a nickel or so. So I kind of Swiss cheese it a little bit, and I'll angle those inside the enclosure. But I only use like vines and thinner sticks to where they won't lay on that, so that it forces them to lay inside the PVC tube. So then every 4 to 6 months, I swap PVC tubes out, and I put those PVC tubes in a completely separate enclosure so that the babies hatch out separate.
Hmm.
And so I'm not like trying to hunt for babies
Yeah.
with 10 to 12 females in there. They're jumping out, the planted. It's heavily planted.
Yeah.
It became a mess after doing that a few times. And you also have the opportunity to collect all your babies, because let's be honest, everybody says, oh, the parents don't mess with them, they can live communally, blah blah blah. That's crap. The babies will get nip tails. The adults will attack them. So for higher production, I started doing it that way, and it's actually worked out great.
It's cool. The reason I began to ask is Mike over at Parkour Geckos came up with this design, right, for catching morning geckos. It has like a little hole in the top. You put food in the bottom. I actually caught a cricket in here. But you put food in the bottom, you put this in the enclosure, the morning gecko will crawl into here and they get stuck down here. He makes them in all different sizes. I thought it was brilliant. I don't breed the morning geckos, but he sent this to me, and I think it's freaking amazing. So I've been asking people, like, how do they catch them? Like, and all I hear is how big of a pain in the butt it can be.
It is. And that would be actually great for, like, throwing that in there the night before you're doing a show, before you're going to box everything up.
Just put
and throw a few of those in there, and it'll save you at least, maybe catching 4 or 5 out of the colony. That might save you 45 minutes.
Right?
Yeah. Because I can't tell you how many times I've opened the enclosures and, like, the females come jumping out, and then you're chasing them behind furniture, and then you spend, you're spending 30, 45 minutes trying to find this little lizard that got behind a cage. Then you got to move the cage, and then you're being careful because you don't smush it. It's just, it becomes a pain in the butt, and when you're trying to pack up, like 100 geckos to take to the show the next morning or whatever, like you really don't want to waste that time for trying to chase one gecko around the room.
Are you putting individual cups when you put them out? I mean, again, I guess you have to, right? Like when you put them for a display, or do you sell them in 3-packs or?
Yeah, so typically I sell them in 3-packs. Like, especially like I'll do the smaller babies in like 3-packs. I usually do like 3 for 100. They're a communal species, so they do really well together. Especially, I always package, like when I package 3 of them, I package like size species, individuals in there. So, I always encourage people, if you're going to get morning geckos, don't just buy one, but you can't always prevent people from doing that. I do individually sell them as well. Like I'll have a few that are, maybe a third bigger than like the smaller babies that I might sell as a single individual. And that just gives somebody the opportunity that already has some that wants to add to their colony, just to buy 1 or 2. But typically I do better selling them at like 3 for 100,
Which ones do you have? Like the type A or type B or?
Whatever the normals are.
I don't know anything about them.
So I have pretty much mainly the normals, and I also have a couple of the yellow bellies.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure what the types are, but I got
I don't know much either.
I got a single female yellow belly, and I've gotten 4 babies from her already, and then there's 4 eggs in her little enclosure right now that just waiting on. So just waiting to build. I want to build that colony up a little bit.
How long do they take to hatch, morning geckos?
It's it's like a little bit temperature dependent, but I'd say around that like 90-day mark. I'm sure they can hatch a little bit faster. I keep the room at like a low 80s, so that's usually when I'm getting about a 3-month or so hatch date. So
instead
of, they come out so tiny, it's crazy.
Yeah, they're micro.
Asking like 100 questions to get to the same point, I'm just gonna ask, how long would it take for someone to buy one of your 3-packs and turn it into like a full-blown colony of like 20 geckos?
So usually about 1.5 years for them to start laying eggs. And then, you're talking about two eggs per female. Okay. So you're talking about 6 eggs, every probably 30 to 45 days. So, definitely would take probably I would say about 3 years.
Yeah, so it's not, thing, and like people get them
from like a 3-month-old, hatchlings to about 2 years for probably get a nice little colony. That's how I started. I bought like a 10 pack of babies and just
Okay.
threw them all together. Waited for a little over a year and started seeing eggs. And I will tell you though, the yellow bellies, they grow a hell of a lot faster than the normals. It's amazing. No, yeah, yeah. 3 months old, 3 or 4 month olds are probably double the size of the normals.
Oh, shit. I was talking to Paul Morlock from Rack House, and one of the
Yep.
coolest things I've learned about geckos thus far, and not, I'd say, he's probably been wrong in his life about certain things, but when it comes to geckos, it's safe to say that Paul is usually pretty right about everything that he says. Um, he was telling me that there are actually absolutely male morning geckos. He
They
says they're
are.
rare, but there are male morning geckos. I
Yes.
found that to be just amazing for something like science swears that they're all females, the only way it can happen, blah, blah, blah. For them to produce males, something's happening, right? Like something, nature is doing something if males are being produced. I can't really articulate the thought process going through my head with the whole thing, but I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, and you talk to a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, males, they're like one in, so over many thousand babies, and they're infertile, they don't do anything. But then I've also heard from people saying that they've actually seen males,
Breed, yeah.
breeding with females.
Paul
So
said that himself. He saw, yeah.
yeah, and I would imagine it's probably some sort of you know, uh,
Genetic refreshing of a colony.
yeah, exactly, refreshing the colony because I mean, the females are just cloning themselves. And so you would have to think at some point that something would have to be introduced to
Then again,
strengthen
for
the
them to
gene at some point.
direct clones, right? I've never seen two that are exactly the same. So that always throws me for a loop too, is that they are not identical. So how are they clones? Like it's one of those weird things where I could just ask questions in a circle for hours.
Yeah, and I've had colonies, so I don't know which females are laying eggs to which babies are hatching out from which female. So I've never had the opportunity to actually like taking the time to like separate a specific female and hatch her babies out and raise them up to see if they are an exact clone to the pattern and color and the whole deal. I would imagine it's probably a little bit of a variance, but probably pretty damn close to being what mom looks like. But again, I don't know. I've never heard of anybody actually doing that testing on if they're an exact replica of the mom, which would be cool to learn to see if anybody ever wants to try that.
All right. So we're here today. We're gonna talk some day gecko. How many species do you work with?
As far as the day geckos,
Yeah.
so I just have standing eye and clemmer eye.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about this standing eye because I think the last time you were on, we're talking to Zabrakis, and we saw that photo of like the baby chilling on the adult's back, and I was like,
Hmm.
got my wheels turning. Like, what's going on over here? They're showing parental instincts, and they're not chomping down on this baby. So that's what kind of like triggered this episode right here.
Hmm.
Yeah. So can you kind of go over like uh, their natural habitat and like primarily which region are they found in?
So the standing eye are from Madagascar. They're one of the bigger day gecko species. One of the only ones that's not kind of solid green like
Okay.
your typical day gecko species. They are from the spiny forest of Madagascar, which is a little more arid than your typical rest of Madagascar. So humidity levels are a lot lower. Um, from the research that I've done, they say it's almost there's like certain sections of it that are almost kind of desert in a way, which you wouldn't necessarily expect from Madagascar. So humidity levels are definitely not as high of an importance as most of the other day gecko species, which makes them a little bit easier to keep, in my opinion. They're a little more of a smooth skinned gecko than most of the other day gecko species, where they kind of almost like like the giant, like the Madagascarinus and the grandis they got this kind of bumps on their skin, um, like a texture to it. as well as their skin's a little more sensitive to the oils on our hand, whereas the standing eye don't see it. It's really smooth, almost like a velvety kind of soft leather texture feeling to it. And they don't seem to have any issues with, if you touch them, they're not going to get like a dark blotching on it or anything like that. So
They're not gonna slosh that. Oh, can they? Can they slosh the skin though if they wanted
not
to?
that I've not that I've ever seen. I mean, I've been keeping
Okay.
standing eye pretty much mostly 25 years. So
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah. So and I've never had any issues with them doing having any kind of skin issues really.
Yeah.
Um, even shedding, like I keep them, like I said, I keep them a lot drier, not as high humidity levels as you would on a typical day gecko species, um, and have never really had any shedding issues. Actually, a lot of them I keep in like old screen chameleon cages.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Yeah. Just because they can stay a little bit drier than a
yeah,
typical day gecko.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm also in North Carolina, so humidity is already a little more
Yeah.
up than most places. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
For
the
me, I would
pattern.
need a regular cage.
that would go up again. That one was a little baby hatching out of the egg right there, right
They
there.
look damn cool.
Yeah.
Do they lose
Which
that
has I've
pattern?
only caught that like 3 times with all the years I've been breeding them.
Do they lose that pattern as they grow, or do they change?
They do, so they definitely lose that like vibrant color to them. As they once they hatch out, they also lose that striping. So as they're growing, that striping tends to kind of break up into a little bit of more of a spotted
Okay.
type of a pattern. Yeah.
Yeah.
They lose a little bit of the vibrance of their color. Um,
Stunning babies, dude. Like the
oh
babies
yeah, they're awesome. I wish
gorgeous.
they would stay looking like that, as adults.
Right?
That'd be badass.
Is there any known morphs or genes or any variations of colors within this species?
I have never seen anything like that's different. I've seen some that are a little more spotted than others, whereas some seem to be a little more like washed out.
Hmm.
So they have a little bit more of that kind of spotted, patterning on the back. That could also be an age thing too. Um, so because as that pattern, as those stripings kind of break up, that's the spots kind of show up. The adults have a little bit of it, but it's very faded out. They kind of almost look like they're constantly in shed in a way.
Yeah. And that's every time I see a dead gecko, I always think I'm like, damn, is that thing in shed?
Oh
Like if
wow.
I go to
Hmm.
like the reptile shop and I see one, I'm like, is that thing still in fucking shed or what? It's like, no, that's just how it looks. I'm like, damn, really?
And
Uh,
you can see in that picture right there, it's a great example of adults with, their youngsters, even at a decent, even the youngsters at a decent size.
They're
yeah, because they're
chunky.
like, yeah, like they're almost. I mean, th're close to the size of the adults. How long were those in there with them for?
So I'll leave them in for about a year. It does vary a little bit depending on individuals.
Yeah.
But typically you can get a good year out of them staying in with parents. So usually what I'll do is once babies from the following season start hatching out, I'll yank all the ones, if there's any still left, I'll yank the ones from last year out and start separating those, and then start introducing the new babies that are hatching.
Very cool.
Nice. So in the
Yeah.
like, so you're 25 years of doing this. Are are they still importing these from Madagascar, or are they just like stopped them as like with the rest?
From my understanding, is they still do come in a little bit. I don't know
Hmm.
what the quantities are. Madagascar kind of changes everything year to year,
Yeah.
as far as like quantities of imports. I don't think a lot of people are actually bringing them in just because they've been established in the hobby for so long.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know how much the demand for them for a wild caught is.
Yeah. Hey,
But
hey, didn't your boy what Tony, he had to go
Tony,
down to like Texas to go pick up
Texas, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
to go pick up a wild caught, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and like you said, they don't come in that often. So, like, I mean, I guess that's like big time thing right there because you're getting some fresh blood.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it's
yeah. I
amazing,
talked with Tony about that too. So
Yeah.
amazing that an animal this beautiful sells for $100, man. Like
mhm.
that's mind blowing.
Yeah, and they're
Well,
still
how?
tough to even sell because you're getting a fast day gecko. It's not something you can really handle unless you really really take the time to work with them.
Yeah.
So
I
it
mean,
does turn people off a little
most day
bit.
geckos pretty fast.
Yeah, most of them are. Like my Clemorai, and the Clemorai are probably one of the more chill, most bold of the day gecko species. That they're fast, but they don't seem to be like super freaked out and want to run away as much.
Yeah.
So you can pull them out and put them on your hand, and just you can kind of reach in the cages and grab them, and they don't seem to be like as freaked out. The standing eye, I've noticed that as babies, they're a little more handleable, as opposed to like some of the subadults and adults.
Okay.
And they're just so damn fast. It's like once they get out in the room, you're spending forever trying to catch them.
Better have that fish net available.
Right, every time I do a show, I no doubt 100% every show I've done, I'm chasing around a standing eye, but trying to pack them
At the
up.
at the show or at
No, no,
home?
no, no, just trying to pack them up at home.
Okay.
Every time, every show when I'm packing up, I
Yeah.
lose a standing eye in the room. And I've had them get out, and they've been out. I mean, I've had them get out and be in the gecko room, and even wander into the house. And they've been out for a shoot. I've had one out for a month before I finally caught it.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, that means they're pretty hardy. You know.
Super hardy.
Just like my toke when I had it, that thing was missing for like 3 months, and out of the
Hmm.
blue, found her ass. She was a little thin, but she was still kicking. So
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's always a good thing when you be like, yeah, gecko could be missing for a month, still gonna be living. You'll find it. Don't
These
worry.
babies are freaking gorgeous,
And
man.
and with us keeping and breeding geckos, there's always crickets loose in the house. So
Exactly.
there's
Exactly.
plenty of food around.
Oh yeah. No, I just gotta over here. I gotta worry about scorpions. Like
Oh yeah, crazy.
yeah,
In the
man,
house?
yeah,
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
no.
yeah. They
Oh,
fly
Check,
in
check
these things.
always check your shoes.
Check your shoes. Yeah, start putting mothballs all in your closets and everywhere. They hate to send up mothballs for some reason. So throw those everywhere.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
can see right there with that baby, you can see it's just chilling in my hand. Like they're definitely more tolerable to
if they
they're
stayed
not, they're
like
not as
that as an
flighty.
adult, Chris, I'd have nothing but these things.
Bro,
They're
right?
like the coolest freaking thing.
Yeah.
so
Wow.
you want to kind of go over what does your setups look like from a hatchling to like a breeding pair?
Yeah, so uh, you know, like most faster, active, um, bigger gecko species, I always tell people go as big as you can. I have I have kind of weird setups with them because I have kind of makeshift cages for them. I don't have like your typical reptile cages. Um, Besides, some of the I raised some of the juveniles and young adults in like those. What are they like? They're the old chameleon cages that are like 20, no, 24 tall or something like that.
The rep debris
Oh, okay.
things?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're like that. They're like I said, they're the old school, just like original chameleon cages,
Yeah.
screen cages. I do have a pair in like a customized wooden cage, which is 4 feet wide by 2 feet tall by 18 inches deep, um, and then just slammed with, I put a whole bunch of cork bark pieces, a lot of bamboo, as much as I can with the bamboo, just kind of corner to corner type deal. And then I have a, a 6 foot by 3 foot by 15-inch deep um, glass cage that I have a pair in as well.
Ooh,
Um,
yeah.
Again, I
Already
hatch out
done.
babies. I hatch out babies. They go I pull eggs. I keep them in delis on a dry bottle cap or dry substrate in a bottle cap. Semi-moist substrate around that bottle cap. I do give it a dry out period. And then as soon as the babies hatch, I throw them in a little shoe box or a tall deli for a couple days to get their first shed out, and then I throw them in with the parents.
Okay, nice.
So
They
they're
know
really
who
only
they are
staying
right
by
away.
themselves for a couple days.
The parents know who they are right away, huh? Or they just they
Yep.
don't. I think the tokays do that too, from what I hear. I think that's so amazing. You can take the
Yep.
eggs, months go by, put them back in. They know their offspring.
Yeah, the tokays, since they're a gluer, an egg gluer, the babies just hatch out in the enclosure with the parents. Uh,
So
and, and, and and the tokays will, the males will protect the eggs a lot of the times. I
yeah,
find my tokays are constantly laying by the eggs. The standing eye do not glue their eggs; they bury them super
Oh,
shallow.
okay,
that
okay.
is.
Um,
So do all day geckos do that, or is it just standing eyes that do that? Because I
as
thought they were
far
all egg
as
gluers.
no, no, most of all the standing eye do not. The eggs are glued together, but
Yeah.
they do not glue them to any sort of surface.
Oh, okay.
So as far as I know, like the clamorai glue them, most of the other species will glue them.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the Phelsuma species which ones do and don't glue, but the standing I do not.
Kind of
Damn it,
offbeat
Chris. You
question,
you are
but do
checking
you
all my stuff off now.
you breed Chihuahua too, right, Chris? Do you breed Chihuahuas?
Uh, I just
Okay.
this is the first year of me attempting. Yeah.
All right. So I always was thought they were like egg layered, like they would bury them. The last two clutches I gathered, these things glued them inside of cork rounds. Like, and I can't figure out what the hell they're doing.
Oh,
See, so I've heard that sometimes they will glue them, but a lot of the times they're not. They're non-gluers. So I would, I don't
mine
know
are
if that was just the
mine are half and
moisture
half.
that was, yeah, the moisture of the egg being, it coming out of the female being moist, and then it drying, sitting on a harder surface, as opposed to sitting in the dirt, made them be sticky.
Could be, could
Yeah,
be.
mine do half and half. Like I got little egg glue marks on the side of my PVC right now. Like you can see where she glued her eggs, but it's not like really tough. Like just pull them slowly and they come off. But yeah, they do it inside the cork bark. She'll glue them. Sometimes they'll
What
like halfway
happened?
bury them. Yeah,
Halfway,
so
yeah.
it just kind of just whatever they want to do, I
That's what I
guess.
find the most common is they lay them on the ground under something. Is like the
Yeah,
most what
Yeah,
I
and
know
this,
here. But
and with the standing eye, they usually, if they do bury them, it's like really, really close to the top of the substrate. A lot of the times they just kind of like, they're just usually just sitting on the top of the dirt, where they'll be, I have a lot of cork, like big pieces of cork. I mean, not cork, but bamboo. And
mhm.
so where those little notches are, where, there's like a flat surface on the inside, they'll usually lay them, and then they just kind of sit on that little node that's in there, and then I
Yeah,
could just take the bamboo and roll the eggs out.
nice. I went and
nice.
cut down some bamboo myself today. I cut down,
I
man. These
saw that.
trees like this freaking big, man, and
I
it,
saw
I
that.
still feel bad. They're not even the biggest one. Like I
That's
wanted to
crazy.
take the big ones, and I'm like, damn. Like I always thought that all of the bamboo grew from like a tiny plant to get big. That's not
No,
true. I went today
no.
and there was a fresh one about this big, and it had it was just a giant shoot, but it was super soft, but it was probably 3.5 inches round and just like a cone at the top. The first time I've ever
Yeah.
seen that in 40 years. I've never seen.
So the bamboo is not. It doesn't grow thicker like a tree does. Every year, the new sprouts get thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker.
No shit.
So when you're finding the big stuff, those are like multiple year old growths from that plant being there for so long.
No shit. I wanted to take it while it was soft and make a shape or something out of it, and I was like, just let it grow. I was gonna try to
Yeah,
do
you
something.
got to be careful cutting them too early because as they dry, they will kind of like they won't hold their shape of being perfectly
Right.
round.
Yeah, they start getting all gnarly on me. Learn the hard way.
I have some bamboo on my property, so
Really, that's cool.
yeah.
There's quite a few different species of bamboo. They come to find out. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I have the regular, and then I have the black bamboo on my property.
That's badass. That's what I keep looking at online to buy to try to plant in some of my enclosures. Like I have it in my head that somehow I'll be able to get some sort of dwarf bamboo to grow in my enclosures, but it's not going to happen. But the black bamboo, I keep look every time I see it. I'm like, I just got to have that. Like I need a yard so I can plant black bamboo.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to have the bamboo already planted in my yard when I bought this house. So,
Out my
Nice.
way, people consider it a nuisance. People like want to get rid of it. Like it just
well,
grows.
because it just so I have like a patch. It's all shaped like an oval, and every year the shoots go out like 5 to 10 feet because they're trying to get away from the original grouping to get sun. So they just shoot out further and further and further every year. So I mean, they just take over. I mean, and they grow so freaking fast. It's unbelievable. I mean, you're
What's
getting like
the
a
outlet?
foot. They'll grow like a foot a week. It's crazy.
Do you sell a good amount of it at the shows? I see you put the bamboo poles out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it takes a little bit of time and effort, to cut them down, to trim them all up, to
That's
get
good.
the branches off of them with the leaves, and just kind of I grind them up a little bit, just so there's no pointy edges and stuff like that. But I mean, I usually sell them for like 10, 12 bucks a piece. But I mean, there's been shows where I've made like 120 bucks just selling bamboo at a show, so
Nice.
Yeah, I love
it's just
that.
something else to fill some space on the table, as well as not everybody has
Oh yeah,
has the availability to get some
Yeah, yeah.
bamboo local. It's local bamboo. I don't use any pesticides or any fertilizers or anything around that area, so it's all clean. Nobody has to worry about it. It's already
dude, I probably got
halfway dried out, the whole deal.
30 messages already since I posted the picture of people asking if I could get it for them. Like I
Oh
could,
yeah,
but to be honest with you, it's not. You're not going to give me enough money that makes it worth my while. I hate to sound like an asshole, but to go
yeah,
down to get it, to cut it, to dry it, like to go through the whole process for like 20 bucks, 30 bucks, like not to sound smug, but I got other shit to do for 20, $30 other than to drive 2 hour round trip to go get bamboo to send you a box that's gonna cost me 20, $30 to ship. Like it's
yeah.
if it was a show or something like that, or someone came to me, I'd give it to them. I'm not going to charge you for it. Take it. But it's a
Yeah,
process.
and I was cutting it down to use it for personal use, at first, and then I reached out to a couple of friends. I was like, "Hey, do you guys want any bamboo?" And then it became just kind of like, "Oh, I should start just cutting a few extra pieces and bringing to shows what I don't use."
Yeah, you have the perfect
And
outlet though at the
yeah,
show. You know,
yeah,
and the famous, it's shameful, indirect, famous plug here. You guys have seen Richie, right, from the Gecko King. He opened up his gallery. You know where all
yeah.
that bamboo came from?
Hell
I think it's fucking cool, man. Like
yeah.
I helped you with that, man. I don't want any credit, obviously, but I seen the New York Times there, the newspapers there, like, yo, I cut that bamboo down my own damn hands.
Yeah, I use one of those circular like metal grinders,
Mhm.
and it cuts it so nice and clean. It doesn't splinter, um, and it works great.
Oh, yeah, I was out there today with a circular saw, Milwaukee circular saw. Wah, wah, wah.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
Oh man. So, for like parameter wise, right? What are we aiming for as far as like temps, humidity, light cycles? What are we aiming for those?
So as far as life cycles, I just really, to be honest, because they're captive bred species, I keep everything, all my timers for lights goes by what the sunlight does outside.
Yeah.
So, everything's going through a cool down in the winter. Light cycles are obviously, shorter, like, 11 to 12 hours. Right now, I have everything going on since it's, close to pretty much peak summer and breeding season. My lights all go on at like 6:30 in the morning and they go off at like 9 o'clock at night. As far as humidity levels, I don't use like a humidity gauge by any means. Um, I do just kind of like a misting for more for drinking than anything.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, with humidity levels, it's with the humidity levels being higher here in North Carolina, as opposed to somebody like you in Arizona, you would probably mist a little bit more often
Yeah.
than somebody like I would here. Um, and then as far as heat spots, I usually provide something in like the mid 90s in a basking spot. Ambient temperatures, will cruise down into probably like the low 80s on the other side of the cages or at the lower ends of the cages. So that basking spot of probably around 95 to upper 90s is pretty ideal. Um, Throughout the day, as ambient temperatures raise a little bit, you don't see them under the basking light as much as you do like first thing in the morning. When the lights pop on, you kind of get the whole group of geckos is on that, those couple pieces of bamboo right under the light to kind of warm up first thing, and then they just kind of disperse and cruise around throughout the day. So you definitely want a heat source for sure with them in the mid to upper 90s and
What do
an
you know?
ambient.
What do you know about them in the wild? What part of the forest do they occupy, or in what part of Madagascar do they come
They're
from?
from the spiny forest in Madagascar, which is way more of an arid species area with it's way drier than your typical the rest of Madagascar. Almost in a way, almost desertish. They don't get as much rain there, so they go through longer
Kind of like
cycles of.
maybe like the like is it like the same area as like the Peridor picta?
I'm not sure about the picta, but
Okay.
I don't know a lot about that species.
Yeah, because I
Um,
just know those ones can take it a little bit drier as well. So I was just wondering, or even
and
like
most
drier.
likely, because I don't know any other. I've done a little bit of research on Madagascar, and most of it typically tends to be like rainforest and high humidity areas.
Island,
Um,
incredible island.
yeah, and so this specific spot, like the spiny forest, tends to be way more on the arid side, so a lot drier and still, in that
I have
mid 90s temperature
I
range.
I have the field guide to Madagascar for reptiles and amphibians, and
Hmm.
I wasn't reading on the day geckos. I was reading it for the my Blazedactylus Sakhalovas,
Hmm.
and it says like for them they are much more of a hotter species than you would keep like the rest of like your Madagascan species. So I kind of do the same thing with them, like you do with your day geckos. Keep it a little bit drier. Uh, just give them a misting. I mist them probably like 3 times a week. That's about it.
Hmm.
Uh, but not. I mean, even like the Ebanawi, they say you keep it drier. So I kind of on the same thing, but I still give like I put like a little half a thing of plastic wrap on the top just to keep a little bit of humidity. Because like I said, I'm in Arizona. It's bone dry over here. Like my humidity is
Yeah,
like like 10%.
I was gonna say 10%. Yeah.
Yeah, probably not even that. But like so, what's your humidity over there in North Carolina right now?
Right now it's probably not crazy high. The summer months tend to get a little higher. Right now, I'd say probably 50 to 60%, somewhere,
Yeah,
40 to
see?
60, somewhere around there. So it's definitely a difference from Arizona for sure.
Yeah,
But out
yeah.
here we get rain. We get rain, at least a little bit of rain. It doesn't go usually more than a week without us getting rain here this time of year.
Shit. God damn, I won't see rain until like September.
Hasn't stopped
Yeah, and our
raining for
su- our
14 days.
summertime our summertime's a lot more rain. The heat I think evaporates a lot of the moisture in the ground, which
Yeah,
then in turn creates rain clouds, and we're not super far from Florida and the Gulf and stuff like that, so we're getting a lot more of those storms that come up through the southern states, and it
yeah,
kind of it reaches up into North Carolina pretty quick. So.
So being that they're a diurnal species, like what like percentage UVB are you using for them?
So I haven't used UVB on them actually in quite a while. Um, I feed I dust crickets and I add calcium with D3 to the crested the diet, the prepared diet.
Okay.
Um, uh, I'm not totally against using UVB. I haven't in a while. I am planning on switching over a few of my diurnal species to some UVB here soon. Um, I was using just like those regular light bulb UVBs as opposed to the
Mhm.
long fluorescents for a
Okay.
while, and they don't last very long. So it was like it was kind of getting a little bit frustrating having to buy a
Oh yeah, you got to
bulb
replace those things once they're
constantly.
like, yeah, it's a pain in the ass. No, I'm
So, and
like I
I've
said,
never had any issues with not providing UVB, um, because I'm using calcium with D3, so it's already produced for them. I know that they will get a little more vibrant coloration showing from the UV rays, um, and they will go up and sit underneath it. I typically during the summer times I'll throw because they're in a lot of them are in the chameleon cages. They're easy to carry, so I take them outside a lot.
yeah, just give them that
Um,
natural.
yeah, so especially when I'm home and I'm not worried about any animals getting to them or anything, I'll let them sit out there on the weekends through the whole
Nice.
day. So,
Yeah. Do they build up those calcium sacs?
oh yeah, yeah,
Now, is
yeah. I
that
call them the
because
neck
they?
titties.
Oh shit. Oh man. So with that, is that just because like they're getting too much calcium, or is that gonna happen regardless?
No, the females will have a reserve basically.
Mhm.
The more production out of the females you get, the smaller they will stay because they're using that to produce eggs and stuff.
Okay.
Um, I have a couple females that are a little not laying as frequently as some of the others, and they're just ginormous compared to
Yeah.
the other ones that are producing eggs regularly. So it is used up. So, but it's always been a kind of a reserve for them.
Okay.
It's also a good signal for us as keepers to know that they are getting their right amounts of calcium. Um, if
Do the
the
males have
females
to
aren't
do it
produced,
or no?
they do not. No.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
usually a good way you can tell as youngsters too. Um, Once they get to that like 9 to 12 month range, besides sexing them, a lot of the times I can look at individuals and say that's a female, that's a male, because of you can see the females will start getting
Oh, so
those
they'll start
sacs
producing
showing
those.
up.
Okay. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, so how do you tell a male from the female? Do they have like you have to look at the pores?
Yeah, so pretty predominant pores. The males will be tend to be a little more on the like a waxy side,
Hmm.
as well as they always have that kind of yellowing color on around the pores. Like so, their scales will become kind of yellow tinted, almost like they peed on themselves in a sense. But you can see that on the males definitely more so than the females. The
Okay.
pores will be you can see the V of pores, and the little dark dots inside each of the pores will be a little more consistent and predominant and standing out. As adults, they get more of a shine to them and kind of a waxy look, similar to like a tokay gecko.
Okay. Now, is that visible right when they're hatching, or it takes a little bit of time before those are visible?
I've never really figured them out as babies.
Okay.
Um, I've done it after they're like that 3 to 4 month age, and I'm probably about like 75% accuracy on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do see some that I'm like, oh, that's definitely not showing any pores, and then it just produces late. So I try to like if I have them separated, which I usually don't, but if I have a couple that are sexed and I do throw them in separate cages, I try to mark them down just to see if I am correct once they do get to that like 9 to 12 month age. Um, and it's fairly accurate, but not 100%. Some people say that they can sex them at like 3 months for sure, but even with a loop, I can't see a main whole lot of a difference.
How old are you letting them go? How old are you waiting till you sell them or offer them?
I sell them at like probably 3 months old. Yeah, 2 to 3 months. As long as they're eating and they're looking great, there's no issues with them, which they're great eaters, so usually that's not an issue. Um, it's
Because they eat both, right? They do the Pangea and the bugs.
yep, they'll
Okay.
pretty much eat anything that you put in there. They're not
Okay.
picky.
Nice.
Anything that moves, they're gonna, yeah.
What's your diet look like for them? What are you offering them?
So I do mostly Pangea. I have a friend of mine that started her own gecko diet. That's a little more like on the natural side. Not as much fillers and stuff like
Give her
that.
a little
Yeah,
plug. What's her name? Drop the info.
mossy geckos. Mossy geckos. She's here in North Carolina. She actually breeds. She pretty much focuses on Chihuahua and gargoyles. That's pretty much the only thing she's working with. She spent. She said she spent 3 years just fine tuning everything. She's worked with nutritionists as well as um, herpetologists to kind of fine tune everything. So she just gave me a few bags at the last show I saw her at, so I tried that out. I had good feeding response.
Yeah.
She's got like a fig, a blueberry, a couple different flavors. Um, so I've been kind of mixing that in a little bit, but I've been on Pangea for quite a few years. I always mix flavors with my Pangea, so they don't ever get like just fig or just watermelon. It's always I use breeder, growth and breeder in, and I mix flavors. Like they may get growth and breeder mixed with fig one time. The next time they might get two of those mixed with papaya. I'm just constantly switching up the concoction, so they're never really getting that same exact formula as far as flavors and stuff. And then I offer
I kind of do
crickets.
that as well.
Yeah, I mean
I
you
always
don't want to
use
eat
that breeder.
chicken every day,
I just use that breeder
I eat
and then
beef every day. I don't
get
know.
get flavor from something else.
Yeah, and I usually my fig and breeder is like my usually my go-to, and then I kind of
Yeah.
switch that third flavor up. Like I'll do watermelon or papaya, or I just kind of switch that third flavor up, and then the quantity, the amount of scoops, just it changes every time that I blend up the food. So,
Yeah.
and then I'll offer them mealworms here and there, but mostly just crickets. But again, they're not picky. You can put pretty much anything in.
Are they skilled
I've-
hunters? Will they hunt down a cricket? Or are they more like an
Oh yeah.
opportunity?
Oh, I've thrown crickets in at like midnight when all the lights are off, and those damn geckos will find them and go chase them.
So, speaking of that, because like I said, they're a diurnal species. When are you actually feeding them? Like routinely? What do you feed them in the morning time when the lights kick on, or you feed them when you feed everything else?
Usually evenings.
Okay.
I go to work in the morning, so I don't really like lights are coming on as I'm getting up and ready to leave for work. So I'm not usually. I might throw Pangea in there like the night before, and that might be 11 or 12 at night or something like that.
Okay.
Whenever I'm feeding the New Caledonian species, I'll fill up their bowls. So then, first thing in the morning, they're pretty much going towards that. As far as crickets, though, it's usually just in the evenings um, when I'm offering, some of the other species. Like
Okay.
usually, I'll try and start feeding them crickets in the evening, 7, 8 ish or so. So it gives them a little bit of time, to consume some of the crickets before the lights go off at 9. And then that's when I start jumping into feeding crickets like tokays and all the other stuff once the lights go off.
Okay. And that was
But I
that
really
was part of
offer. I
my
mean, it don't even matter. You can put crickets in whenever, and they're gonna
yeah.
eat them.
Yeah, that was part of my right there. Like getting a diurnal species, my paralysis by overanalysis is like, when the fuck do I feed these things? Like, should I be feeding them right when I get up in the morning when the lights turn on, or do I wait until nighttime? Or are they gonna be super fucking hungry? They're gonna be pissed off. Just all those things start running in my head, and next thing you know, I don't end up getting anything. So
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think it matters a whole lot. Um,
yeah,
I do think that they probably first thing in the morning they're more they're more focused on like warming up their body again.
yeah,
Um, like I said, a lot of the times when I see them first thing, you can see them all piled on top of each other or on the bamboo really close to where the heat lamp is. So they're
yeah,
just kind of focused on warming up and getting that body temperature raised. I guarantee you that, especially with the standing eye, they would run away from that to go chase crickets. But um, I try to do it. When again during the day, it's hard to like feed in the middle of the afternoon by any means. So it's usually like early to later evenings, and I just give
okay,
them a couple hours to consume everything before the lights go off.
yeah. Go ahead.
Don't leave it up to me because you know what I'm going to say.
Go ahead.
Do you? Let's talk about these gnarly toed halmaheras.
Oh, you want to move on to that already, huh?
Yeah, man.
All right.
It's just one of those species that infatuates me, man. I don't know a fraction of what you know. I didn't get a chance to read your article today. I was working on my grandmother's deck again. But
Yeah,
for anyone, did you post it yet publicly or did you not?
I have not. No.
All right, so guys, stay tuned. Kris has wrote up a pretty cool, an article, just a paper. He wrote up a paper about halmahera geckos that may
Yep.
answer some questions we all have. So just stay tuned. We'll get it to you guys. Yeah, talk to us about halmaheras, man. I literally know nothing about them. I'm learning as I go. I mean, it's kind of just a feed, mist, hold type of deal. I know nothing about them in the wild. I know nothing about them in the hobby, the history of them. I know nothing about these things. Enlighten us, please.
So I've been keeping them probably 13, 14 years now. I started with a long-term captive pair that I bought from a pretty big reptile store out of Florida. Um, they were just a species I ran across. I don't even remember how, but
So
just
they've been around
stumbled.
for a while then.
They have Kurt Lance from Rep Room. He's out of St. Louis. He he says that he was the first one to captive produce them in the United States, and he still has the same that the first male. I think it's a male. The first one that he produced is what he says is the first one captive born in the United States. That's like 25 years old. So
Wow.
they have been in the hobby for a while. It's just a lot of them are still coming in imported. So you see a lot of wild caught specimens coming in. They're from Indonesia, so um, they are still brought in regularly, and there must be an abundance of them because I see tons of wild caught, still coming in, still offered. Um, so they're from Indonesia. They're from Indonesia and the surrounding islands of Indonesia.
Well, they are from
Um,
ones.
yeah, there's actually an island called Halmahera that's off of Indonesia. So they do come in a blue eye form as well as a green eye form. Um, the blue eye form is like a kind of a crystally bluish color. The green eye form is more of like an emerald kind of green color eye. And just from talking actually specifically with Kurt, he said he was importing them back in like the 90s, the mid to late 90s. He said that when they were catching them on the surrounding islands, they were coming in as blue eyes, and anything coming in from the mainland Indonesia was coming in green eye, which he said they do not import from the surrounding islands anymore. So you're only seeing green eye form coming in, wild caughts nowadays. Um, the blue eye form is dominant from my experiences with breeding them. So I've had numerous babies that come from a blue eye male and a green eye female, and you're getting blue eye babies.
Interesting. There
Which
is
is pretty
another
cool.
species that's commonly mistaken with them. Is there not? There's like another.
The Vorax gecko.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's Gera Vorax, which is fairly similar looking, um, um, body shape size, the big toe pads, the nails on top of the toe pads. They do have more of a bronze colored eye and a little more coloration to their body. So a lot of the times when they're coming in imported, they are labeled as the Vorax gecko. Um, in doing some research quite a few years ago about the Borax gecko is actually an endangered species and hasn't been imported in forever. So you're not going to get a Vorax, the Gera Vorax. You're not going to get that species. It's just unfortunately it's still labeled as Vorax as opposed to marginata
What? So that's
Okay.
the name of Gera marginata is the scientific name for the halmahera, right? Gera.
for the halmahera. Yeah, yeah. And then there's the Gera Vorax, which is
That's the other
like
one.
like I said, is it's an endangered species. It looks the body's shape and things are similar, but the coloration's a little bit different. The eye color's definitely different. It's more of a bronze colored eye.
I remember when I got the one that I had, the kid that I was getting it from tried to say that it was one of the other ones, and I was like, "Buddy, I can assure you it is not." He was like, "No, I'm
Yeah,
telling you, the kid I got it from, he's telling me." I was like, "And listen,
yeah.
it's not." But I get where you're coming from. It's exciting. It's cool. I'll give you whatever you want for it. Just let me get the damn thing. I don't want to.
And the exporters are probably trying to label it as borax. It's probably one of those things to try and
Get some extra money.
make people think that they're getting something that they're not, and maybe possibly,
That's what
again, I don't
I
know,
just
but
read. I came from a pair. This kid has some kid in Pennsylvania, but I again, like I said, I know for a fact that it's a halmahera. But yeah, I don't know. So from we have spoken about the species before prior to this podcast, and
yeah,
all I know is the one that I have, and she's super handleable. But I've spoken to other people, including yourself, that say they can be rather flighty, and they also have some gnarly adaptations to escape predation or handling. Talk us to tell us a little bit about what you know about some of these rumors or myths or facts, or about their handleability and maybe some of these escape tactics they have.
yeah. So typically, I mean, they're fast. They're a flighty species. They're very similar and fast, and sticky toe pads to a day gecko species. Um, I've gotten some, long-term captive adults that I've had, for 13, 14 years, and they were already full-grown adults when I got them. And, full size, it takes probably 3 to 4 years to get to full size. So, you're talking probably 19 years old for a couple of these geckos that I have.
Cool,
And
man.
they've just never calmed down, never. I mean, trying to be interactive with them. I didn't spend a whole lot of time trying to work with them just because I have other species like, I have things that I can handle if I want to handle them. So I don't force anything to be handleable.
Sure.
Um, but they can slough their skin fairly easy. Um, so if you do grab them, they tend to squirm and do like a death roll in your hand. And if you're not squeezing too tight and they do spin, their skin will slough off. So it tears the skin
Really?
and exposes the underneath, which is like a pinkish color.
Would grow back?
Um,
Does it grow back?
it does, and it actually comes back pretty quick. They recover pretty quick. They heal, faster than you would expect them to. You see it a lot with breeding. The males will bite the females, and with the small teeth that they have, and then the females squirming, you get a lot of those bite marks and those wounds and the tearing on the back of the necks and on the head.
Do you have to do anything
Um,
to treat those wounds, or is it just something you just leave alone and they take care of it?
I do not treat anything. No, not for them. I've never had any kind of issues with infection or anything like that. I've always just kind of left them alone. I do, if the females are getting too beat up during breeding, I will separate the pair, just to kind of give her a chance to recover. I have lost females, which they look fine, and then 3 days later they're dead. So you do have to kind of keep an eye on, during breeding seasons, the males tend to get just they chase them around a lot. You can hear them running around in the cages.
You keep them in
Um,
1.1s, or how are you pairing them?
I keep them typically in 1.1s. I have kept trios, and didn't have any issues. Um, I don't recommend it. I would say it's definitely more based on the individuals, whether they're, tolerant to each other. One of the main things with keeping them in pairs is I provide as much like surface area as I can. They need those visual barriers. I try to stack cork pieces kind of like vertically, almost like flats, like on top of each other, to where there's tight crevices for the females to get into to get away from the males.
Yeah.
It just gives them kind of their own safe space. And I've noticed that they've done better with keeping when you provide a little more like hiding spaces and tight crevices for them to kind of hide in and get away from each other and not see each other constantly. They do tend to be on the sides of cages a lot, so they're climbing up a lot of the walls and stuff. So if you don't have that visual barrier, you're just kind of, you're almost asking for the males to see the females
Yeah.
more often, and then you're getting that chasing around and stuff. So I do notice though that babies are way more tolerant to handling than adults.
What does the reproductive cycle look like? How long do they incubate? How temperatures, gestation period? Talk to us about that a little bit.
So I've had typically the 30 to 45 day gestation period between eggs and stuff. Like I had a couple seasons where when I was first getting, the first pair that I got, like she was literally like on point on 30 days. I was getting eggs from her. Um, and it varies a little bit. Some seasons you get the females to be a little more productive than other seasons. Sometimes you might get one egg as opposed to two. Sometimes you might find a slug in between, actually good quality eggs. But typically, like that 30 to 45 days, probably more leaning towards the 45-day gestation. Um, as far as incubation, I mean, I've had babies hatch out at 90 days, and I've had babies hatch out as long as 224 days.
God,
Damn.
damn.
So, and that was the ones that went longer, the ones that went to 24. They were a late season lay. I don't put them in an incubator for temperature control. So
Weird. That's crazy.
they were in the room with the animals. So they went through kind of that winter cycle of the
Okay.
cooler temps, in which
That makes sense.
just pushed the eggs a lot longer. But typically we're looking at like that four like about 4 months, like 100 to 120 day typically.
Okay.
Cool. How are you
Are they highly
incubating them?
calcified?
They're a hard shelled egg. They lay two separate eggs, so they're not glued together. They're like a perfectly round egg, like I said, hard shelled. They'll usually like barely bury them under the substrate. I mean, usually like you can see the tops of the eggs sticking out from the substrate a lot of the times. They're very rarely like dug, down under a couple inches, like hardly ever. It's usually within the top half inch or so of the substrate. And then what I do is I keep them like all my hard shelled eggs. I always do the same technique where I put them in bottle caps with dry, I use Hatchright. So I'll put them in bottle caps with dry Hatchright in a deli cup with moist Hatchright. So the eggs are never touching the moist Hatchright. They're always touching the dry, and then it's inside
Is this a
the
halmahera right
moist.
here?
Yep.
145 days, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, those are cool
145.
eggs. I don't have anything that lays eggs like that.
Yeah, and they're one of those ones you can see them grow as like typically most other eggs, you can see them kind of grow as time's going.
So this is the blue eyes you were talking about.
Yeah, that's the blue eye. He's very fired down, so he's really dark, and then that's your typical green eye form, kind of
I love
almost an emerald.
those little lip scales. You know where they have like the Day of the Dead like lip things. You know what I'm saying? They have like the black dots,
Yeah.
like these things. I love that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they got like little skirts on the side of their bodies. A lot of people call them like they're common. A lot of people call them like the poor man's lychee because they have that leachianis look to them, like especially comparative to like a juvenile leachianis. They almost, I think they more look like a chihuahua than they do a lychee. But they can be tamed down. They're a little squirmy. Here's one here. This is one of my males that's pretty chill. He actually sits on, when I do shows, I have little fluorescent lights that go above my on my table and stuff, and he will literally sit there the whole weekend on the fluorescent lights, just kind of chilling.
I love their tails too. They have like some of the coolest tails.
Yeah, he has a regen tail, which never really quite grew back like full for some reason. I got him as an adult already, so he had already regened his tail. I think it didn't regenerate all the way because it looked to me like it was broken at the base. So, but I have had some regen their tail, just like the tips and stuff, and they come back barely looking like a normal tail. You can see like a slight little line of where it had separated.
Yeah.
But usually I've never seen one like him where it didn't grow back all the way. It's like a stubby, like 2 to 3 inch little tail.
Yeah.
Is there any sexual dimorphism with them? How do you sex them? How can you tell the difference between a male and a female? Is it just pores?
Like for younger species, yeah, pores. They get a little bit of that yellow coloring around the pores, similar to like the day geckos. But they get that very. Sorry, the dog's coming in. They get that very waxy V pore shape. The females do have some pores to them. So that you can mistake them sometimes when you're sexing them younger. But you want to look for that kind of waxiness to the pores. Usually, like that 9 to 10 month age is usually when you can start seeing like bulging at the base of the tail showing up. They don't bulge as much as like say a crested or a gargoyle by any means, but you can definitely say that there's a bulge there. But and like I said, you get that kind of waxiness to the pores, and some yellowing will show up around the pores and onto like the back legs. You'll see like a yellowish coloring on the scales. The males also tend to be, once they're full grown, you're already knowing the sex at that point, but the males are definitely a little bit bigger than the females.
Yeah, they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I would say probably about 10 to 15%, probably bigger than females.
No, sure.
Oh wow. Shit.
How's the market?
So when you got these in pairs, what size enclosure are you doing for them? And I'm assuming it's much more humid than you would for like your day geckos.
Yeah, so I keep them similar to, as far as humidity and spraying and stuff, similar to like the New Caledonian species.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit warmer. They will take basking spots into the 90s,
Really?
which most people don't realize.
I didn't know.
I've always kept them in the upper room temperature, like where I have them above my toques and next to my toques. So as far as like the ambient in the room is like low 80s, but their cages are getting probably more mid to maybe upper 80s during the day. So I don't really offer a actual basking spot. But they will bask up into like the mid 90s. They won't stay there all day by any means, but they will definitely go under it to warm up and adjust their body temperatures. I keep them in bigger enclosures because they're such an active gecko species. Um, Probably one of my more active geckos that I keep. So um, they do not waste any of their cage space at
I
all.
love mine,
Um,
dude. I don't know why they're so underrated. I can't wrap my head around. I mean, why more people aren't keeping them? I mean, they are a cool freaking gecko.
I think part of it is availability for one.
Yeah.
Another thing is I've talked to quite a few people because I actually started the halmahera Facebook page
Yeah.
um, probably like 10, 11 years ago, something like that,
Awesome.
because I couldn't find any information. I couldn't find any other keepers and breeders. So I started that page with just trying to find other keepers and breeders and find more knowledge on them because everything was labeled as borax um, on the internet. Um, and so I started that page specifically to try and find other keepers and find out some info as much as possible. And a lot of people that I've talked to complained a lot about like finding wild caughts at shows and stuff like that, and then just not living, and them just not doing well coming in wild caught, and and then the skin issue. You people start hearing about, oh, they slough their skin and you can't hold them and blah blah blah, and I think it just becomes a turn off to people when you can get something that you don't have to worry about skin issues and stuff like that. Um, all the years that I've kept them, I've grabbed, I've grabbed all my halmaheras like hundreds of times, and I've just learned how to grab them. You either grab them and commit and hold and squeeze, or you let them go. And I've probably only had 4 or 5 that have actually sloughed skin off by my actual handling. So it's something it's not as bad as what it
Yeah.
comes across and what people might think.
I
Um,
imagine they're not looking to throw their skin off, right? Like they got to be pretty scared or something's off, right? Like it's not just something like the notorious crested gecko and tail thing. Like don't touch their tails will fall off. To get a crest, I mean, I get it. Crested geckos will throw their tails for sometimes seemingly no reason, but I
yeah,
have zero problem reaching in a cage and picking mine up by their tails. Like it's
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and they don't necessarily just like throw their skin
Yeah,
off. It's definitely something more about you have to like really like you have to almost
yeah,
like push down and push it off.
Mm.
So it's more of I don't know if it's more of a defense mechanism for if like something bites them,
yeah.
and then you can
Sounds
just like that skin can separate from their body, and so then the predator gets a mouthful of skin as opposed to the whole gecko. That's I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of that would make their skin soft. I mean, their skin's pretty soft and
very soft.
like a velvety feel to it. So that does make them a little more, like, I would say, sensitive. Um, but again, I've handled them hundreds of times, and I've only had it happen a few times. And again, it's usually when I was grabbing a squirmy adult, and they got freaked out and started spinning in my hand, and I just didn't commit and grab on hard and hold them and or let go. I was kind of in between, and then they spun in my hand, and it just made a piece of their skin slough.
Sure.
So,
So
do you like to? I guess do you like try to acclimate all your hatchlings so when they go to a new owner, they're a little bit acclimated to hand taming?
I don't. I don't. Only reason is I just like the time to take care of all these animals
Yeah.
as it is already, and then just everyday life. I just don't. Unless you're consistent with it and you're doing it like every day or every few days, like you can handle them for a week, and then you go a week without it, you're back to square one. So it's I don't have the time to be like for the consistency on it. I'm more worried about like feeding and spraying and taking care of my animals. Um, if the keeper wants, the buyer wants it to be something that they want to handle, like I kind of leave it up to them. I always tell people, start young, don't buy a subadult, buy a baby, uh, and you'll have much more success. I've pulled babies out at shows and like walked them across my hand without ever like handling them besides putting them in a deli cup. And they're not as flighty. You can see right away that they're way more tolerable to handling than an adult would be. So they're really, to be honest, I've had quite a bit of feedback from customers of mine that have bought babies, and like within a month they're like, look, it walks right onto my hand. I can walk around with it in my gecko room on my hand, and that's just them, being a little more consistent because they only have maybe a few reptiles, whereas me having 200, I just don't, it's not something, it's not a priority for my keeping. But again, like I said, they're probably I think they're actually easier to tame down than a crested or a gargoyle gecko, which is one of the most popular gecko species that people do get to keep and handle and hold. I tell people work with them and have a big tub, that you can work with them. So if they do jump off your hand, they're not running across the floor under some furniture. They jump out in the tub and they're easily contained. Worst case scenario is you throw the lid back on it real quick, gain your composure, and get ready to, try and mess with it again. But once they seem to be on your hand, they really mellow out. It's just the initial getting them or grabbing them. They're a little flighty. But, again, once they come out, like they just sit there, and like this guy was squirmy and trying to bite me at the beginning when I got him out of his cage. And now like you can touch him and he doesn't even want to move,
Nice.
So it's just that getting them out and letting them know they're comfortable.
Yeah. We got a couple questions in the chat saying how hard was it to get established in the gecko community? And then also what all did you work with as far as geckos?
So, getting established in the community, I've been keeping reptiles, really since I was like a little kid, but got like kind of crazy into it in like the late 90s, where I was just kind of like dabbling with a little bit everything, I don't really ever have the intentions on like trying to blow up and be like this big name in gecko breeding or anything like that. I like to keep what I like to keep. I've made a lot of friends doing it. My name getting out there, I've got my name a little more out there, of course, by like doing shows and stuff. I don't travel to do shows, so I pretty much only do shows in like the Charlotte area. I've done Raleigh, I've done Columbia, South Carolina, I've done Asheville, North Carolina, but pretty much my main shows are Charlotte. I don't have to, I can come home every night and sleep in my own bed. And plus that cuts into your expenses when you have to pay for hotel and travel and things like that. So, I just, again, I have a Facebook page, I have an Instagram page, I post pictures. One of my main things I've become known for is the halmaheras. Over the past few years, people see that I'm regularly selling babies to people that are looking for halmaheras. So my name gets brought up a lot because I am one of, I don't know anybody else besides Kurt Lance.
Right?
Yeah.
I very rarely see him offered when I look on Morph Market. So.
Yeah, Kurt Lance is the only other one I know of that's, at least regularly producing them like I am. I know other people have, produced them and had babies and stuff like that. I just have never seen anybody consistently year to year that, has babies to offer. So I usually don't even have to, I get so many people that reach out to me about halmaheras that I don't even really post much online, even that I have any for sale. It's every few weeks to every couple months, there's somebody reaching out and says, I heard about you breeding halmaheras.
if you get to a show, they're pretty much going every time you go to a show, huh? You get rid of them.
Yeah, a lot of times, yeah, because they see that male that's up on the light fixture. They see how everybody wants to touch it. They feel how cool it looks. They see the eyes, which is a big selling point. They get to touch it. They see how big it is. Once I kind of explain to people like, hey, this is a fast gecko that's easily tamed down. Like it kind of sells itself with the beauty and the gecko species in general, and it's something different that you don't see very often. So I do have pretty good success at shows. So yeah, and they're not a crazy price point either. Like
No,
I sell
amazingly
I sell
not.
babies I sell babies for like $150. You know what I mean?
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, so it's nothing extreme. You're not paying like $500 for anything. They don't have any really morphs besides the green eye and blue eye, so you're not like, oh, this one's red, this one's blue, this one's whatever. They
Right.
all pretty
Yeah.
much look the same.
Yeah. So the other question Untamed had was
Gecko
what all
species.
geckos, yeah, which ones do you work with? Which I know is probably a
Um,
lot.
yeah, I have shoot, I don't know, 14, 15 different species.
Yeah.
I have Cerdactylus, Zebricus, the bentodes. I also have Cerdactylus irregularis, the Geckoella decensis or decensis, however you pronounce that.
Yeah.
I have the Bawanglingensis cave geckos,
Nice.
a few cresteds. My bigger projects are the gargoyles, um, the standing eye, and tokays are like my three bigger projects. That's probably have the most breeders of those. I have the
Yeah.
Clemeri, the Philsoma Clemeri. The halmaheras is another decent group that I have. I have Blazodactylus bovini, which is the giant Madagascar velvet geckos, which are the big gecko species. They're similar size to like the halmahera body size.
Yeah.
I have a few chihuahuas. Um, I have a single Leachianus, um, morning geckos, and I think that's about it. Some bamboo rat snakes that I'm raising up to
Nice.
hopefully
Nice.
breed down the
I like
road.
those.
So yeah, they're super
A little bit
pretty.
of this, a little bit of that. I like that.
But I've worked with
Um,
everything over the years. I've had turtles, frogs, chameleons. Like I've dabbled with it all.
so got another question in the chat from Bioscapist. Because he's currently working with Clemeri. He has 3 eggs incubating. He says, "What temp do you recommend for good mix of males and females?"
Probably your like mid 80s.
Mhm.
I don't know if those 100% are temperature sexed or not. Um, but if they are, I would say, upper 80s, you're probably going to get more likely males. Lower 80s, you're going to get more likely females.
Mhm.
Um, so I would say kind of more in the middle, like that 84, 85 degree range would be if they are temperature dependent. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure on those.
Okay. And then he asks, with baby Clemeri, do you feed them every day, or is it better to feed them in the morning or feed them at the night?
I don't think there's necessarily a specific time. I would definitely, give them quite a few hours before lights go out when you offer them food. Gives them the time, their time to find the food, or and also kind of gives them a chance to sit under the heat lamp to kind of help digest the food before they go to sleep, as opposed to just
Okay.
eating and then um, lights go off and then the temperatures drop. I with smaller any geckos, any species that's on the younger side, I always say more often the better in just small quantities as opposed to adults. I feed my young Clemeri probably I refill their Pangea every other day,
Okay.
whether it's whether there's some still left or not, I refresh it every other day.
Are you feeding Pangea to your halmaheras too?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and they eat a lot.
Yeah.
My girls
I'm
are
gonna say I'm
shocked.
sure they take some big prey down, right?
Yeah, I fed and I fed anything. I mean, I fed crickets. Um, they like stuff that moves around a little bit. But I've also tongue fed them pinky mice.
Really?
Oh yeah. As adults, I've even fed them like stillborn gargoyles and
Oh
cresteds like
shit!
that.
My girl took a
Yeah,
super worm for the first time off of tongs
yeah.
last night. I didn't think she was gonna do it. I had a couple left. I'm like, let's see if she'll eat it. She grabbed that thing like,
And did
loved
she
it.
shake her head?
Loved
Did she shake her head and
Hell
all that?
yeah!
Yeah.
Hell yeah! Loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, they do that
Uh,
with the pinkies too, and I've had half the pinky goes flying across the cage.
She's a little savage. I'm telling you, she's one of my favorite freaking geckos, man. For something that came out of right field, for something I could care less about. Like I said, I got in a trade for some crested gecko stuff. Like it was
Yeah.
like, dude, definitely take it. She's turned out to be, and super handleable. You see how handleable she is. I mean, she's
Oh
like,
yeah, I have. Yeah.
she's the perfect. I love this freaking gecko, man. I wish
And
people knew
that's
how cool they were.
and that's always the best way, is to try something new. Is when you get a trade, you're not spending any money. It's kind
Hell
of
yeah.
like, you do a little trade. You don't really lose anything, per se.
Absolutely.
But you'd be
yep.
surprised when, once you get it in your hands, things that change. Like that's how it was with the Chihuahuas. I was never like a huge fan of Chihuahuas, and then I got some, and I was like, oh my God, these things are amazing.
Yeah, they are something special.
Yeah,
But
I think that's how I
every
got my
similar, I mean,
Blazidaquilus.
similar in a lot of ways. I mean, not physically, I guess, but even as adults, they do look similar to a Chihuahua. But
Yeah.
personality-wise, my halmahera is very similar to a Chihuahua. Very, very similar.
Yeah, a little jumpy, not really like run, really ready to run by any means. Kind of jumpy and just kind of stroll. When they are on
They
your
can
hand, they
turn
just kind of
back on
stroll real
themselves real
smooth.
fast. Like my Chihuahuas aren't as agile. This girl
Yeah.
could turn on a dime. Like she can do some gnarly flipping, go from one side of a log to the other in a second. Like she's quick little girl, but
And I think those big toe pads help a lot with that, too.
Oh
Like
I
yeah.
wonder what the
they have
nails are for. Like
monstrous toe pads.
why have they developed those nails in such a unique way? I would look at them and I'm like, I've never actually seen her use them other than on me. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
different textures, and maybe a barker, a rougher barked tree, they would, bend them down. But when she's on her wood, just a regular, got a piece of regular like driftwood in there and then a piece of bamboo. She's just always got her pads out and on them. It's very, very unique.
Yeah,
Very unique.
and when you watch them walk, they'll actually fold their toes back too to
Yep.
kind of pull that nail away from getting hooked. My I haven't really looked it up, but my assumption would be is I'm imagining that there's probably a lot of smooth barked trees in Indonesia, which would help with their body mass and the toe pads being big, and also that like meat hook claw would help grip onto like a smoother barked tree than like a rough barked tree. That's the only thing I can think of where it would benefit them to have such a huge toe pad and have those nails be so big and hooked. Because if you look at the nails too, they're not on the tip of the toe pad like most gecko species. They're actually
Yeah.
they're actually like in the middle of
Yeah.
the toe pad.
Yeah. It's
Super,
weird.
super neat.
Yeah.
Is there other species of geckos that have toes like that? Is it like a golden gecko or a bronze gecko? Is there other geckos that have? I feel like I've seen another species of gecko that has had toes like that.
I
Or
know the Goldens they don't have, it's kind of an in between. It's not necessarily like on the top like the halmaheras are, but it's not necessarily like at the tip either. So, but as far as like ones that look like the halmaheras, I've never seen any other. Even the other Gera species, there's another one that's available in the trade. It's a lot smaller of a species. The mulatta or something like that is another one that's available, and they're way smaller, and they don't have that big hooked claw like the marginata does.
You ever stumbled across any like scientific papers or anything like written in the field about these things? I look and I look and I
Nope.
look and I look and I like studies from people like in the field that are watching them in their environment. And I can find them on just about everything I look for. I can't find a damn thing about these anywhere.
I found a little bit more info when I started looking them up. I mean, there's definitely a few things out there now. When I got into them, there was like nothing. So I actually started looking up under Vorax gecko because that's what they were coming in as wild caught. And you found a little more information looking under Vorax than you did marginata. So that did help a little bit. But I did a lot of just as far as husbandry and keeping by a little bit of trial and error. Also talking to the pet store that I bought them from in Florida, and also just looking up, humidity and temperature levels of Indonesia, was kind of just how I kind of started things out and just kind of tweak things and tried things accordingly from there, and just to try and provide better husbandry over the years.
If you could suggest, like, say someone was getting them for the first time, they found one or stumbled across one, and they wanted to find some information. What advice? What would you suggest they do as far as information? Where would you send them to get the best, I guess, group of information other than your Facebook group? Is there anything you would say? Just research the
Yeah, I mean,
island.
researching the island again, you can definitely figure out they're such a they're wide range as far as like where they're found, from my understanding, because they come from the surrounding islands or from dense forests. You can find them in even in urban environments and things around people, like a tokay gecko. Um, and they seem to be fairly abundant, which means that they're probably fairly adaptable to a lot of things. Which even makes even more sense of me keeping them. They're a pretty hardy species. Like they do very well um, in at adapting to different temperature and humidity fluctuations and the variety of food that they're eating and stuff like that. I don't know if I haven't found any specific like website or anything that I would say. I have seen a couple people put out like care sheets on them, um, but I don't remember who exactly it was. And that was more recently, and I think that was just somebody probably ran through the same issue as everybody else, as they couldn't find anything. So they're like, "Here, I've been keeping these for a few years. Let me just write up a little article, kind of a deal."
I just
Um,
looked up the halmahera forest for the first time for some reason, looking at pictures of it. That's a pretty gnarly looking jungle, man.
mhm.
Yeah.
And
Before I
you got. I
forget,
mean, Indonesia has got some crazy stuff too. So there's
That's
you can only
beautiful,
someone
imagine.
asked,
dude.
uh, for your baby Clemerai, what do you start them off with as far as feeding? Is it those Madagascars, or is it Heidi Eyes?
I don't use fruit flies.
Okay, what do you use?
I start them off typically on the prepared gecko diet, like Pangea,
Yeah.
and then I will offer like pinheads or eighth-inch crickets.
Okay. Cool.
So anything that's smaller than the width of their head.
All right.
And
Cool.
again, I
So
only usually throw maybe two or three every couple days. I try to make sure that they're interested in them, but I'm always offering Pangea. Always.
okay. Cool. Cool. All right.
And I keep them small too. I keep them in just the tall delis for the
Okay.
first few months.
Like those the fruit fly cup ones, or the
Yep,
okay. Yeah.
yep, yep.
I
Just
need to
keep
order me
them
just a
with the
bunch of
lids,
those.
with the lids that have the screen mesh on the top.
Yeah.
Those are perfect. I do like a 2-inch substrate. I put like a little fake plant, maybe a couple sticks in there. Most of the time they're on the surface of the cup anyways, but just
Okay.
give them a little hiding spot, and then like I said, I always offer Pangea, just no matter what.
Okay. So he asked, why no fruit flies?
I just, 'cause For me to buy like a whole set of fruit flies, I mean, I really only have a couple things that would eat fruit flies. So
Yeah.
to like even buy a container of fruit flies, like I buy 1,000 1/8 inch crickets, and that goes to my morning geckos and the baby clemori, and that's really only have that's small enough that would take those prey items. So I just never
Yeah.
it never made any sense for me to like go and buy a culture every
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
weeks.
Uh,
And then it's definitely not worth reproducing the culture by any
yeah.
means.
I don't even use fruit flies anymore. I hate them. They just get on my nerves. So like I'm either using pinhead crickets, or I'll go into like my Chihuahua tank. I got a ton of mealworms in there, so I have baby micro mealworms. So if I need to, I'll
Yeah.
start pulling them out of there and just use those.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. I mean, mealworms are easy to breed, so that's always a good small source. Um, I do breed a small, um, I don't know the name of them, but I breed a small cockroach species too. And
Okay.
the babies of those cockroaches come out like literally the size of like pinhead crickets.
Okay.
So, if I'm ever in a pinch and I don't have crickets, I always have the cockroaches as kind of a backup.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yep.
like you, I didn't want to deal with the fruit flies.
Uh, it's a
That's why I
pain in
never
the
got
ass.
into dark frogs. I just don't want to deal with the fruit
Yeah.
fly
Exactly.
cultures.
Exactly. It's like if you can't take a cricket or a roach, sorry, you're not allowed here.
And again, luckily, they are a gecko diet eater like the morning geckos. So, worst case scenarios, I mean, they're getting Pangea. So, I mean, and they're getting their full complete diet from that anyways,
Yeah.
especially because I use Pangea that's mixed with insects and stuff. So they're getting high
Yeah.
protein levels from that.
All right. All right. Well, we're coming up to the end, and well, I mean, we've already had we already asked these questions before. So, and you want to hit with a different closer if you got one?
If I asked you why halmahera would be a good pet gecko, what would you tell me? If I was going to choose between a halmahera and a day gecko, what would you tell me the pros and cons of both are? As far as if I'm at a show up at the table and say, Kris, I want one of these two geckos. I want a halmahera. I want a stand-in. I'm leaving here today with one of them. I'm a new gecko keeper. What would you tell me? How would you sell me either of the animals?
Um, I mean, first thing I would ask is if the main thing is are you active at night? Or are you active during the day? Are you home to see them active during the day? Or are you a little more of a night owl where you're going to be kind of interacting with your animals at night and see them doing their hunting and their cruising around the cages? That would definitely be something to consider. If you're working all day and you're never home during the day, a nocturnal animal might be a little more ideal because at least you can see them in the first few hours of them with lights off. Handleability, I would say the halmahera is probably a little more tolerant than as opposed to like a standing day gecko. Not saying that you can't tame a day gecko down. I think they require a lot more work to tame a day gecko down than a halmahera gecko. Um, as far as hardiness, they're both like pretty similar. They're both super hardy. Both are eating pretty much any prey items you're offering, any prepared gecko diet, those types of things. I think that the halmaheras have a little more personality to them. Um, my standing eye, even when I was keeping them in my living room for years and years, they're still flighty when you get close to the cage and they run and hide. Whereas the halmaheras are definitely more like, oh, you're in the room. I'm going to come and see what you're doing.
I'm
So they come
curious.
to the front
Yeah.
of the cage. They're way more curious and not as scared, it seems. Um, so I would definitely say, if it's something you're wanting to see a little more often and maybe be interactive with a little more often, the halmahera is probably your better bet. Because as far as feeding and spraying and misting, those things are all very, fairly similar. You are providing probably more of a heat lamp with a day gecko, and a lot of people want UVB and stuff like that. So your costs are going to be a little bit higher probably with a day gecko. Um, Calcium supplements are a little more crucial. I would say with the day gecko species than halmahera gecko, unless you're breeding heavily with your halmaheras. You definitely want to make sure the females are getting that, calcium replenishment from laying eggs. But I would say a halmahera is probably better off for somebody that wants to see their animal more often and create a cool kind of enclosure for them. When you're providing 95-degree heat, it kind of limits you on plants and things like that in your cage, as opposed to the halmahera that's in the 80s and maybe upper 80s. You can provide a little more of a tropical look, which is going to give you more options of plants and things like that, which I think looks more appealing to the eye.
Sold me on the halmahera.
Oh,
Well, you
man,
got lucky
nice.
with a real good one though too. You really did.
No, but honestly, just with the one, comparison with, the day geckos are probably gonna leave, the open space when you come in a room, and a halmahera is going to come investigate. That alone right there is just intrigues me, and that's.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't have day geckos, but I mean, I can vouch for that. When there's noise in the room, she's up and out and seeing what's going on. And
yeah,
that's enjoyable. It definitely is. And then the whole environment thing, like you just said today, for the first time, I actually got to look at both animals' environments. Pictures of both environments, and to me personally, the halmahera's environment is much more attractive and appealing than we're not saying that that spiny forest in Madagascar is not completely fucking amazing. It is, but
hmm
as far as captivity and reproducing, replicating in an environment, how the forests of halmahera are a lot more up my alley. But it's
yeah. And with the warmer species too, it's like I said, as far as plants, it's tougher. You're very limited on what plants you can put in a cage that's going to get in a warm spot of 95 to 100 degrees. You're kind of limited, and you don't really want to put cactus in your cage. So the tropical, there's way more tropical plants that are going to survive and do better in a halmahera environment as opposed to a standing eye environment.
sure.
The one thing I do like about the standing eye is the fact that you can have babies and groups of them together. That is pretty cool, and that is definitely a perk to keeping things standing eye, but that's probably the only, I would say, plus over a halmahera.
Well, babies are gorgeous. That's
Yeah, that too.
Nice. So no, I think last time I asked what's your biggest failures. This time I want to say what has been like your proudest moments in your reptile keeping career.
I mean, like I said before, I'm not in this to like become a big name. I do this for the love of keeping reptiles, and I mean, I'm an animal lover. Like, no matter what it is, I love all types of animals. They're all very intriguing. Um, One of the biggest things for me is like to get people to reach out to me to say, "Oh, I heard you're the guy that does halmaheras, or you're the guy that breeds Cerdadactylus," and even doing shows now, like the fact that I've done shows the past few years to get those customers to come back to me and to tell me like, "Oh, my gecko's doing amazing," or they want to come back and buy another gecko. Those things, getting the recognition for like me putting the time and effort into my collection, and those little rewards like mean a lot. Um, and sharing with like the younger kids and stuff, like that's always a plus too, to see like the excitement of like the younger generation and being able to share my experiences when I didn't really have the internet to look up, like
Oh
when I
yeah.
started. So it was a lot of trial and error. So just getting people to recognize who I am. And I recently, like I was telling Anthony earlier, I recently had a girl out of Russia who reached out to me and said, "Hey, I was recommended to you. I write a reptile journal that goes out to the public, and somebody recommended you to write an article on halmaheras.
How rewarding
And
and nice.
yeah, and like that just was like really. I mean, somebody in a totally different country, you know what I
Country.
mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you be willing to write like an article about halmahera geckos?" You know, she appreciated them. She said that they're super cool species, and she was really trying to um, get them out there and more recognizable and more, you know, people getting more people intrigued on them in the hobby. And so that was super cool to like have some random girl reach out to me and say she wanted to produce an article that I would write. So like that was like, you don't, not everybody gets that opportunity. And so that just like that was pretty awesome, you know, for me. Like I've worked hard to really like try and promote the halmaheras over the years, probably more so than any other species. I think I've talked the halmahera, you know, 10 times more than any other animal that I keep. And I just think they're super, super underrated and not really well known. And I've had quite a few people like that have purchased from me, like are like this is my favorite gecko. I've had people that are like, I'm getting rid of some of my other geckos and focusing more on halmaheras, and you know, so that like that just is super cool to know that like I had an influence on somebody's like collection. You know what I mean? Like I didn't tell them to keep just halmaheras. Like they bought a couple from me and came back to me and said they fell freaking in love with them. So like that, I know I'm only a little part of the whole reptile world and my influence, and I just try to make an impact with connections with people as much as I can, and do what I can, with the
Nice.
time I have, I guess, you know.
Sure.
Nah, I definitely appreciate that. When is that article? It has been released already, or is it gonna? Do you have a date on that?
No, I don't. So I've been kind of just working on it a little bit in my free time.
Okay.
I kind of zoned out one night and wrote as much as I could, but it was just all like talk text, So I did a lot of like the general, just what was like kind of off the top of my head, and I've gone back over it probably 4 or 5 times, just rereading, editing, adding some things that I missed. I sent it to a couple of my close friends that I actually do shows with, who also have kept halmaheras or are still keeping halmaheras, and had them kind of look over it and put their 2 cents in. So I've just fine tuned it here in the past couple of days, like with all the literature portions of it.
I'm excited to
Um,
read it.
yeah, so I mean, I broke it down. It really is more of a, I would say probably more of a a guide to keep, as opposed to like she just wanted a smaller article, but I probably wrote a full on care sheet about them more than anything. I wrote, I broke down husbandry, breeding, sexing, feeding. I broke down the whole deal. Is from my knowledge, from babies to adults, temperatures, humidities. I broke down all of that. So um, I just now need to grab a few pictures that I would like to add for the article. I have like probably 300 pictures of halmaheras, so I need to go through that, and just pick out like a handful, like a couple. I have a few pictures of the eyes that I want to show, the different color eyes. A few pictures of like how to, with the sexing, with showing the pores on the males and the pores on the females, and then maybe show a picture of a baby or two, something like that. So pretty much, it's just about to the point of sending it to her. I don't know when she's going to publish it, so I told her to just
Okay.
to kind of give. I told her to give me a few weeks and just let me kind of make sure everything's good. She said she was going to tag my Facebook and Instagram on the article and things like that. So um, I want to send it to her, have her produce it on her end. But I'll definitely be adding it to the Facebook halmahera page that I run.
Nice.
Just because I see there's a lot of questions on, what do you guys do with this? What do you guys do with that? So I think that'll kind of really knock out a lot of like the just posting of generalized questions, and hopefully, hopefully help people to keep their halmaheras better, and hopefully find more people that are into will get into breeding them. So
Nice. So where can everybody find you at?
Facebook and Instagram, Hoffman Geckos, Hoffmann Geckos. I'm pretty much on mostly on Instagram, but I do check my Facebook pretty regularly. I don't have a website or anything. I just have those two, so I get a lot of questions through that stuff. I'm always happy to help people that have questions about stuff that I'm keeping. Um, or even if they're looking for something crazy, if I don't have it, I probably know somebody that does. So,
Yeah. Nice.
I'm always willing to help the reptile community out as far as kind of pointing people in the right directions. And I've answered millions of questions for new people like want to just hit me up and they saw me at a show and they want to kind of expand on their knowledge a little bit. So I just try and do what I can.
Cool. Oh well, Kris.
And this is a great opportunity here too. So like getting with you guys, is awesome. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you guys do. And like I think it's awesome to have like a super cool podcast to be able to kind of go through, especially with you guys dealing with geckos, which is my love of all reptiles. And I know it's your guys' as well. And just kind of like seeing your guys' shows kind of week to week and getting all the variety of reptile keepers and gecko keepers specifically, and getting giving people an opportunity to come and watch something and gain as much knowledge as they can just from us, kind of experienced keepers over the years, as opposed to trying to look up stuff on the internet which you don't know you don't know if it's right or wrong. So to hear from like the horse's mouth per se is like, and you guys have big names like like Paul and Boris and Richie and stuff like that is like, to hear what those guys have to say who are very successful in the industry is, um it's awesome. I wish I would have had this when I was like getting into it.
Trust me,
I think it's
we had this 10 years ago. I'm listening to all these other. I've been listening to podcasts for so long that like, man, there's no one that's just doing a dope gecko podcast. Like I listen to like NPR religiously, and I'm like, man, I got so happy when they actually were gonna do a gecko podcast off their NPR network, and then they did one episode, and then that shit just stopped. I was like, oh my god, because it was supposed to be like Eric, I think it was supposed to be like Nipper Reed and Phil Wolf. I was like, this is gonna be so amazing, and that just stopped. I was like, damn, man. So
and the popularity of geckos, like specifically, like a lot of people are into snakes, a lot of people are into chameleons and stuff, but the popularity of geckos over the past like probably 7-8 years has just grown so much more than I would say any other species in the reptile world. And so like to get this outlet and to people and have it available to the public, I think it's amazing what you guys are doing, and it's awesome.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, brother.
What we're trying to do is give people another resource to learn, man. It's all we want to learn. And we could all read the same book and then apply those, the stuff that we learned from those books to our environments, but none of our environments are the same. So we talk to different breeders from different regions working with the same thing, and we in theory figure, talk about the 100 ways there are to skin a cat, and everyone can take little bits and pieces if they want from breeders across the globe and apply that to their collections and their lives. It's
and you really start to see and you really start to see when you talk to people that have different opinions on things, you do start to see what does overlap and what is consistent.
Oh yeah.
And and those are definitely the things you want to start. Yeah, you want to start from there. It's like, if everybody's saying to keep an animal at 80 degrees, then you probably want to keep the animal at 80 degrees, so there might be some little variances according to each keeper, but you do find some similarities with keeping animals.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, people. So we're about to head out. If you're listening to this, noon, night, whenever, have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and we'll see y'all next week.
Enjoy your weekend,
Kris,
man.
Stu,
Stay weird, people.
yeah,
Peace.
I appreciate you so much coming on again, talking geckos
Yeah,
with
thank you.
us. You know, I said you got some more weird shit. Come on in. Like we love hearing about all the obscure stuff.
For sure. For sure.
All right, everybody, have a great night. We'll talk to y'all later.